Capitalism versus socialism. What is the issues with our economy? This economist, Richard Wolff, is going to argue that capitalism is the problem. And this guy, Peter Schiff, is going to argue that socialism is the problem. And the guy in the middle, he's the moderator.
In the sense that I'm tired of socialism for the very, very rich, and then everybody else gets the crumb in the capitalist economy. Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, well, first of all, don't confuse what America has now with capitalism. I mean, what's left of capitalism have been destroyed by socialism. So it's the socialism that has crept into the system that is responsible for the problems in this mass disparity in wealth.
Wait a minute. It struck me as one remarkable thing, Peter, to blame socialism for the ills of capitalism is an extraordinary move at a time like this, when the socialist movement is coming back from a period of historic weakness, precisely at the time that the growth of inequality went rampant, as you yourself
Socialism
said.
has been alive and well beneath the surface, undermining the structure of the American economy. Look, you're talking about the fact
that socialism.
All right, gentlemen, I have to jump in. We're going to have an underclass, permanent underclass.
He's no, but that's like, it gets heated. Like, even economists, like, they don't agree on this, and like, it gets heated between them, like, where they talk like over each other.
Semantics.
No, because he's saying like smaller government, and he's saying more socialist legislation to like help people, and he's saying no one should be helped. Like, that's the issue.
But
it's government involvement is what they're involving in.
What about socialism for the very rich? The very rich getting all the bailouts, whatever. The government handouts are much bigger to the big.
Yeah, he's saying that's the issue. He's saying no one should get anything.
Oh, no one should get any of those handouts.
Yeah.
That socialism.
All right, gentlemen, I have to jump in. We're going to have an underclass, permanent underclass, and it will. The perception is that there'll be enough political stability to maintain the status quo. Because it seems to me, I agree with the last remarks you made in the first part of the program. Is that I don't see a way out here. Go ahead, Richard.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what's happening. I think we're learning in a variety of ways to live with an enormous underclass. I might disagree with you that we didn't already have one. I think we did, but I think we are now learning to live with a much larger one. And you can see that in a variety of ways. The acceptance, despite what people claim, of 200,000 people dead from a pandemic that didn't have anything like that impact in many, many other countries. The United States has 4.5% of the world's people. It has 25% of the COVID cases and 25% of the deaths. For a rich country, that's a stupefying failure of management, but it's also the acceptance of unspeakable suffering in its population as if it were normal. And ditto for the level of poverty, ditto for the level of discrimination. Dr. Anthony Fauci yesterday at the Bloomberg Equality Summit explained how people of color in America have the lowest wealth, the lowest income, the highest cases of COVID, and they're the frontline workers. They're the ones that are suffering from hypertension, diabetes, obesity. If you wanted a proof of everything the Black Lives Matter movement wanted to suggest about systemic racism, you could just listen to Dr. Fauci for 15 minutes and you'd get it. And it is being accepted mainly by the government right now as official policy, since they're doing absolutely nothing to undercut it. I think we are becoming the society we used to see overseas.
Okay, so basically what the moderator asked was, are we becoming a society where we have two classes, like an upper class and an overwhelmingly poor lower class? And what Dr. Richard Wolff is saying is we've been that. Like things that we see in like India or Brazil. Yeah, and he's like,
they can feel the connection.
Right, and he's saying like the systemic like racism or the systemic like poverty or like the systemic things that keep people in those places, like we're seeing now manifest themselves in like the Black Lives Matters movement, because it's no longer just subjugated to like a small percent of the people. It's like a majority of the people are now living in this lower class.
It's undeniable too.
Yeah.
They're dying.
No, but that's
death
what
rates of that. Them not getting care enough, or
right.
They're getting sicker at higher rates.
So that's why he's arguing like that's what capitalism has created.
Well, that's what happens when you privatize public health.
Overseas, enclaves of wealth, New York, San Francisco, Chicago, and all of that, and surrounded by a sea of really desperate poverty. They have accepted that in India, and they have for 50 years, if not more, despite being independent from Great Britain. They have accepted it in Brazil, another case. And boy, you look at Trump, Bolsonaro, and Modi, and you can see the kind of right-wing government for which this is an acceptable arrangement.
Peter, and obviously I follow politics very carefully, and I watch snippets of the Republican and Democratic conventions, and I was appalled, absolutely appalled, that neither party had a proactive economic agenda to pursue in light of the high unemployment and the structural changes that are going through the economy. I didn't see that from either party here, and it goes back to my question to Richard: is this an acceptance that we're just going to have a whole lot more poor people?
Well, just look at every big city and how they treat their homeless.
Well, yeah, I don't know if you guys caught that, but the moderator is basically saying like I follow politics very carefully, and neither Biden nor Trump are addressing the issue of the economics on their platform, and it's like neither of them care. That's basically what he's asking. And so he's asking him.
Just don't talk about it.
He's asking Peter Schiff. It's like, are we just living with an acceptable amount of like a bunch of poor people?
The reason that Americans don't have any savings is because the economy hasn't been growing. They've been able to keep it together through debt. They've used debt to replace their income. But why is that? It's because we don't have a vibrant economy, because we don't have real increases in productivity, thanks to big government and thanks to the Federal Reserve. So we're in this gigantic hole because we abandoned capitalism and embraced a socialist form of government. We have government central planning. We have central planning on interest rates. We have price fixing and market manipulation. And we have an economy where we're trying to generate growth by printing money and giving it to people to spend. And that is not going to work. As I said, the only way to get real economic growth is to shrink government so that we can have a stronger, more vibrant economy, because we need more productivity. To consume more, we have to produce more. And the government doesn't produce anything.
Okay, so that's what he basically asked him was like, are we just living in a time with acceptable poor people? And this economist uses that time to be like, the government's the issue. Anyways.
So what you said about voting them all out was correct?
Interfere with the productive efforts of the private sector. The problem is, though.
But Peter, the government, particularly in the last few years, particularly during this economic turndown, they chose winners. I mean, so Jeff Bezos and Apple and they're the real socialists in America because they're the winners in all of this. Okay. I mean, I think, these terms, capitalists and socialists and all, don't really mean anything. For me, is that who's benefiting from all of this? The middle class is not, the working classes, and the big tech companies are. And the banks are doing really well here.
No, the banks are not doing well. Look at the banks are imploding. Look at their share prices. Look, the banking sector is in a lot of trouble. But look, none of the bailouts should have happened. There shouldn't have been a PPP. The whole thing was a disaster. Nobody should be getting a check from the government. These extended unemployment benefits were a mistake. What we need is less government, not more government. Government has to cut spending, not increase it. Money printing is just going to make it worse. It's going to destroy the value of our money. And we're going to blame all these problems on capitalism, and we're going to continue to build a bigger and bigger government that is going to suffocate the life out of this economy. And the people who are going to suffer the most are going to be the middle class and the poor.
Okay, well, the thing is
They're
that
already
if you have,
suffering.
but I agree with you how the dollar is being destroyed here. But the people that are benefiting from this, they turn their dollars into real assets like land,
Yes.
which will always have value here. But what about working people that lost their job?
No, they're getting screwed.
They can't turn that into an asset.
Peter,
But what is the government supposed to do about it? The government can't solve that problem by printing money.
I've always found it
Hang on, guys.
extraordinary.
Go ahead, Richard.
I've always found it extraordinary that the way folks like Peter try to exonerate the capitalist system from its grotesque failures is by having a deus ex machina. The government drops into this story so that all the anger and bitterness and rage against the capitalism that produces all these problems, including owning and controlling the government, is exempted from the criticism. You siphon it all off on the government, create this utopian fantasy of a capitalism without, let me finish, without a capitalism without a government has never
I didn't say no government.
always
Limited
existed.
government.
The
Look at the
government
growth
has
we had
always
in the
been
19th
the
century.
government has always been controlled by the people who have the big bucks. They've used it for their own advantage. The imagination that we could have a capitalism with a minority of employers that control everything, who are not going to try to control the government, is a fantasy we have never seen.
Your ignorance of the current situation is only exceeded by your
blaming the
ignorance of
government.
history.
It's supposed to be like the government. This is big business, and he represents the working people.
Well, so
This guy pays his salary.
Basically what Richard Wolff was saying is that your version of the capitalist story, the government just conveniently drops in to be the bad guy, but it never addresses the real issue, the people who control the government, which are the wealthy, the donor class. And that's why he's calling him out for it. And this guy is just getting upset. And then it just kind of devolves from there.
Listen, I don't do that to you, so do me.
But I'm telling you, you're wrong. You don't understand capitalism. You have no idea what's going on in the U.S. economy.
Maybe
you believe in a bunch of
nonsense. Everybody
nonsense.
what to do. Keeping on talking doesn't solve the problem. I go, then you go.
What's your solution to the problem?
You're not directing this conversation.
Well,
sir.
I'm asking you a question.
You're part of it. Yeah, that's not
What's
your
your
function.
solution?
We have
Bigger
someone
government,
who asks
more money printing. What's that going to do?
Listen, you're not.
We're just chewing up time. We're just chewing up time doing this here.
Yes.
Okay, Peter asked a fair question. What is the solution, Richard? Because we only have about 2.5 minutes. 3 minutes.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
what's the solution?
Here we go. Capitalism is a system that is organized in every enterprise by having a small minority of people, the owner, the major shareholders, the board of directors, making all the decisions for the majority of people who are called employees. That's a very similar arrangement to the lords and the serfs of feudalism and to the masters and the slaves of slavery. We didn't break out of that dichotomy of a few controlling the many until we developed the concept of democracy. The solution to the problems of capitalism is to put capitalism where we put slavery and feudalism. We have to substitute a democratically organized enterprise right at the base.
So I don't know if you guys caught that, but he's saying the solution to the problems with capitalism is to put capitalism where we put feudalism and slavery, which is behind. He's saying we need.
It didn't work. It doesn't work. We need something newer. And we are able to do it better now with the technology available. We can do it without representing.
Well, no. So what he's saying is democracy is the answer, and he's going to outline how workers involved in a company need to have one person, one vote, not everyone. The board of directors and shareholders having all of the decision-making power and all the equity.
Factory, every store, every office, organized in the way we organize our politics. One person, one vote. We decide together what to produce, how to produce, where to produce, and what to do with the fruits of the labor we've all contributed.
The problem is your solution
more of
is
a
worse
system
than the problem. You're talking about creating a Fidel Castro-like environment in the United States. Look, if you...
Yeah, so he starts, He can't even wait.
Lived in a Fidel Castro type of environment.
He can't even wait for him to stop talking before he can interrupt him, and he starts like throwing out, like Fidel Castro. He's gonna throw out like the Soviet Union and North Korea too, and he's gonna call it communism.
No, but I'm like, you've never even lived there. Like,
right.
You've never even seen what it like. You just talk about these far off like demon lands.
Yeah, that's the part of like arguments you don't want to see. It's like, oh my god, like you're just devolving into like name calling. Yeah, and
you don't want to change your idea or view or recognize when your answers maybe don't make as much sense.
Yeah, and then he just starts talking over him. The talking over him is just like rude.
This works so well in Cuba, in the Soviet Union, in North Korea. You have this fantasy where communism works. It doesn't work. It only works in your imagination. It doesn't work in reality.
Okay,
and your ideology is responsible for misery, poverty, and death.
I want to ask a substantial question here. Peter, how would you react to tens of millions of people that have lost their job, have no future? And I don't think they think in terms of capitalism, but a lot of them would say, what is capitalism doing for me? And I think that's a legitimate question. Because I agree with your first answer in this program, because a recovery, it depends on yourself, where you are in life, if that's a recovery or not.
Yeah, the solution depends on embracing capitalism and rejecting socialism. We need to restore free market capitalism to this country. The government needs to get out of the way. We need to have sound money and limited government again. That is the only path back to prosperity. There is real pain. There are real problems. I don't deny that. Government and central banking cause those problems, and government and central banks are not going to solve them. The more government we have, if we try to socialize the economy and turn it into some kind of socialist paradise that only exists in fantasy land, we're going to take a bad situation and make it much, much worse.
You know who controls the government just as well as I do. Blaming the government just lets the people who are pulling the puppet strings off of the criticism they deserve.
Who made all that money? Who owns those businesses that are lining the pockets? Like, we can see it all. Like, they don't make money from their jobs. They're making money off trades.
So this guy, he basically straight up asked him, like, so what's your solution to the problem? This guy answered, make the government smaller. And this guy answered, give equity to the workers. One vote, one person. He's like, make it more democratic. Anyways, do you have anything you want to add? That was kind of a long video, but I thought it was interesting.
Why people are pushing for unions again? Because all the workers are getting squashed.
I guess. I don't know. I thought it was interesting fighting, seeing two economists fight.
Well, like the people who are fighting Uber and stuff, and about being freelancers and whatever, and California tries to do a real good job of like fighting for the employees.
I know, but seeing, even economists
all the time
try to defend why we have so many like poor people. It's like, it's because government, man. It's because the government's too big. It's like, oh, okay, so
the government wants its people homeless.
Yeah,
really?
duh.
Like,
oh,
the government wants.
Why didn't I think of that before?
I don't think that's initially what any of our governments want.
Thank you so much, Peter Schiff. Oh my God, eyes are open. All right, well, that's it for.
I guess it's time to write.
Yeah. So if this makes you as anxious as this make us, go check out our merch store. It's where we keep our buds. And if you don't have buds, we're your buds. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.
If you liked this video, don't like, don't comment, don't subscribe, don't retweet, don't follow, don't reblog. Do not smash the like button. In fact, keep your fucking hands away from the like button. Stop.